All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Touching Grass podcast. This is a podcast where, I guess it's one Appalachian and two Midwesterners right now. We'll see if Adam jumps in. We're going to get together and talk about what's happening in the real world and try to make an honest effort to push back against the all too online dipshits that we have to deal with. I'm Woods, and I'm here right now with Charles and Chris. How you guys doing?
I am good.
Doing all right, everybody. We're recording a little late tonight, and everybody's. I don't know if you guys. I'm a little punchy, but hopefully.
Yeah, I think we got some important shit to talk about. What
Yeah.
about I know it's of all of us. I think Charles has probably been up the earliest. I think he's the longest. I think he's the only one that gets up earlier than I do.
Yeah, I've been up since about 4:30 this morning. So
whoa,
yeah. I was about 5:30. So yeah, you got up about an hour before I did.
Guys, this is not getting up. This is a sleep disorder. I don't know. Yeah.
No, it's having a 15-month-old who likes to scream.
Right.
See, for me, it's also a result of the kids for me, but it's because that's my me time, right? Like I sit there, I play a really obnoxious mobile war game. So I farm on my mobile war game. I do, I get into all that. I drink my coffee, all that good shit. So 4 o'clock in the morning is the me time.
Oh,
so how do you somehow look younger?
Well, for those of you that might be listening to this without video, our friend Adam has joined the pod just seconds after we started, and he does look like he's 16.
This is actually just a better camera. I
Nice.
always look this young, is what I'm saying.
Well, we joked before that you were filming it with a toaster, but
no, this is actually the same camera I used before. Just for some reason, it's I'm in like 5D now.
Nice. Well, how's Adam doing?
You're ready to play that 5-dimensional chess with Kash Patel.
It was a harrowing journey, but I escaped. I broke out some real Jason Bourne moves. Got out of the van in time to stream with you guys.
All right. Nice.
And luckily for you, we haven't started anything because Charles and I both went on our own individual rants that derailed the intro.
Yeah.
So,
and that's perfect. I really appreciate that my resolution is now finally good enough that none of you can accuse me of wearing a MAGA hat.
Right. It does say.
I can still accuse you. It just won't be persuasive.
I have one of those. Like mock MAGA hats laying around my house somewhere that say like make racism wrong again or something like that.
Yeah,
that's pretty cringe, dude. That's resist lib shit.
Thank you so much.
It is. That's solid cringe. Listen, I bet you money.
That's probably the most online thing about me is that I have that hat laying around somewhere.
I bet you we could bribe Adam's wife into like hanging one on the corner of the bookshelf over there, and he wouldn't know it.
Probably wouldn't even have to bribe her.
Hat?
Just to mess with
gentlemen. You. Yeah, just to mess with you. We'd bring it up and make you feel bad. All right, gentlemen, we have a myriad of things we want to talk about. You guys have sent in recommendations that we want to go through on our little outline here. The big beautiful news is, of course, the big beautiful bill that passed just the other day. And I have to say first off that I personally was surprised they actually pulled it off, because watching them get it together was like watching somebody try to herd cats, and I can't believe they did it.
So here's the thing about these hardline deficit hawks, right? They have no actual principles, man. There's one hardline deficit hawk who actually has principles, and that's Thomas Massey.
Well, that's because Thomas Massey is too crazy to like connect the dots between actions and consequences.
Oh yeah. He's a loon.
But here's what I will say is, like, you got these guys like Chip Roy. I better not ever see Chip Roy on the House floor again, lobbing some gigantic, basically the House equivalent of a filibuster about the deficit and, this, that, and they like, shut the fuck up, man. You just agreed to pass, $80 trillion over 20 years on your children. The debt since 1776 was $37 trillion. And you just to double it over an 80-year period to give tax giveaways to the people who need them the least. I better not ever see you doing that performative lip service again. The only lips that we know where your lips are going, and they're right on Donald Trump's ass.
Like I would literally try to do an old school hot foot on him if I saw him like doing that kind of a speech, kind of Looney Tunes, kind of crawling under his chair, putting matches in his shoes, shit like that.
I swear to God, I think I would just start like have an aide bring me like a bucket of ice chips, and I'd just sit there and start throwing them at him. They're ice chips. They're not going to hurt you. They're just going to make your clothes all wet. Anyways, that's the least part of this bill is realizing that, libertarians are, they're like cats. They like to pretend they're independent and don't need anybody until they actually do. And that's all those hardliners are, is faux libertarians. So,
well, no, I wouldn't say libertarians are like cats. I would say they're like unicorns because they don't exist. As far as anybody in elected office goes, a libertarian is just a Republican with better marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or worse marketing, actually, because I think they're about to lose their ballot access in like every state.
Well, no. I'm not talking about capital L libertarians. I'm talking about lowercase l libertarians.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Capital L libertarians couldn't win an election if there was one eligible voter and it was them.
Yeah.
They would.
Yeah, they had Justin Amash for a while, though, didn't they? Oh no,
but he didn't get elected as a libertarian.
Yeah,
he got elected as a Republican and switched parties in office.
Yeah. Anyways,
that's
all right.
That's also a big pet peeve of me. Like people who switch parties in office.
Oh yeah, if you change your party, this is something that I fully believe should be the law. If you switch parties while you are in office, it is a resignation and it triggers a special election. You can run in the special election under your new party,
right?
But it triggers a special election.
Yeah, but we're off the topic. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I actually disagree with that. I think we're way down that rabbit hole. But so for one, I still can't. It took me a second. I had to go and actually look up the actual bill to realize they actually named that fucking thing "One Big Beautiful Bill." Here's the thing.
Hold on, One Big Beautiful Bill.
The funniest part is that that's what I was going to say, is that they've named it the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Except they very clearly don't realize, like they must have missed Schoolhouse Rock before they realize that that it's a bill and then it becomes an act once it's a law. Like it's just really redundant to include the word act. That's just really stupid.
I think that when it does pass, and it will pass, because whatever comes out of this, they sent this to and Charles, I want you to break down. I'm sorry, Chris, Charles, I'm going to mess that up. Chris. Break down.
How could you confuse us?
I don't know. But it's going to go to the Senate, and whatever comes out of the Senate will be different than this, and then it'll be less shitty probably in some ways, but it'll still be shitty. But whatever is actually passed by both houses and signed by Donald Trump, I demand it be called the Big Beautiful Bill Act. They have to do that.
What would the abbreviation of that be? OBA? Almost like a sheep.
Is one part of the acronym?
One is in there. Yeah, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act of 2026 or 2025.
Yeah.
No, 2026.
We live in the stupidest timeline.
That's what it is now. It's OBA.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so the Senate will probably. So typically, what you see is when there's a really terrible piece of legislation that they want to bully.
All right, we're losing Chris.
Yep, we lost Chris.
Did I lose you guys?
Yeah.
Yep. You froze.
Yeah, you lost everything after typically when there's one terrible piece of legislation.
Yeah. So typically when there's one terrible, typically when there's one terrible legislation, I'll start that again so that we don't have to. But yeah, so typically when there's one terrible piece of legislation, what you'll see is it'll originate in the Senate. The Senate will send it to the House, and then they'll go home. So it's pretty much like take it or leave it, basically, right? You see that all the time with continuing resolutions.
Yeah.
But in this specific case, The House pulled the Senate on the Senate. The House passed a really terrible bill by a slim margin and sent it to the Senate and then went home, which is very problematic because also included in this is lifting the deficit ceiling or the debt ceiling. I mean,
$4 trillion.
Exactly, $4 trillion. So they're lifting the debt ceiling in this bill. So and we run out of money mid-July. So if the House doesn't come back, we're in trouble. I mean, you have to assume they will. But anyways, so what you'll probably see here is John Thune has basically said, I'm just going to write my own version of this, and then you guys are going to have to kind of deal with it. And they're going to use his as like a guidelines. So, or they're going to use the House version as guidelines. So I would expect that it would probably be slightly less terrible in some places. But you got to remember, you got to get back through the House because they've got to, for anyone who isn't familiar, they've got to concur. They've got to agree. So you've got to be able to get it back through the House on final passage. And this, I mean, you've got Murkowski and Collins who said they don't want Medicaid cuts. Murkowski, I would say will probably vote no, just on the simple fact that she has principles and kicking people off of Medicaid aren't part of those principles. Collins will probably do the typical. She'll be concerned, and then Collins will be concerned, and then she'll vote for it anyways because that's what she does.
Well, they can. Sorry, I was a political science major, and I only took one math class in college. How many votes can the Republicans lose
in the House or in the Senate?
They can lose.
In the
Senate because JD Vance can break the tie.
Yeah, they can lose. Yeah, so they could. So you've got Murkowski and Collins are basically a no to start. Yeah,
Both
and then
Collins
Rand Paul is a
voted.
no if it adds $1 to the deficit.
Nobody's gonna.
What's that?
Because unless they really need somebody's vote, like nobody's gonna lean on Susan Collins, and she might just vote no because we're getting.
Well, I don't know though because Jared Golden has said he's not primarying her or he's not running against her. I mean,
no, but the split ticket is dying, and Susan Collins.
Oh yeah, it's dead. I wouldn't even say it's dying. I'd say it's dead.
Susan Collins is on the way to going the same way as Joe Manchin, being somebody who, super popular in their state for super long, but they're in the wrong party. I think Susan Collins is going to have a real tough election next time, no matter which Democrat runs against her.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I think they want to let her vote no if they can.
So, but they can't. That's the thing. They need her. They need to get her to yes. And then you've got Collins and Murkowski, and then you've also got Rand Paul is a no. He's already basically said he's a no because it adds so much to the deficit.
I mean, do they go back to the good old days of getting the Affordable Care Act passed by basically driving a dump truck load of money up to Blanche Lincoln's office? Are there a bunch of carve-outs for Alaska to get Lisa Murkowski across the line?
I mean, not without adding more to the deficit.
No, not yet.
Who cares about that anymore? On that side of the
aisle. It's just all made up at this point. But
there's like literally a 0% chance of Lisa Murkowski voting for this thing. Are you kidding me? Like,
your better bet is to bribe the shit out of Susan Collins.
Yeah, like there's like actually a less than 0% chance for her because so much of Alaska relies on federal programs that any sort of cut to that.
Wait, you mean the peak freedom state does actually need all of our federal tax dollars?
Yes, actually.
I thought they didn't need us.
Yeah, actually they do. They need the shit out of us.
Yeah, it's almost like Florida, right? Like if everybody's like, "Oh, I'm moving to Florida because I don't have to pay taxes there." Well, no, the fuck you don't. I pay your taxes.
Mm-hmm.
No, you also pay their homeowners insurance because
right.
The only way you will insure that.
Every other company.
I saw a meme today that was like, "What is?"
And we lost.
Yeah. He froze with a really amusing expression on his face.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of like moving this over to the deficit increase.
I just switched bands on my Wi-Fi again. Sorry, guys.
No problem. Just kind of moving this over to like deficit increase and general financial fuckery.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I guess, a silly goose here but wasn't the purpose of the big beautiful bill and like Doge and all of this other shit to like not add to the deficit, whereas this bill blows up the deficit?
Wait, do you mean was it the purpose or was it the alleged
stated
story? Yeah. I mean, Doge was there to find fraud, waste, and abuse, and they basically did not find any of those things and made and just fucked up our entire.
Well, they found some by creating it themselves.
Exactly. Thank you. But like Charles is saying, I mean, the numbers I'm looking at here is we're looking at a 2.8 trillion dollar deficit increase for this bill. And I mean, it's like, it's what Chris said, like they're literally just going to take everything from the middle and lower income brackets and just shift it up to the upper income brackets. It's a wealth transfer that doesn't need to be done. And in principle is against everything.
I think we should all just come clean here for a minute. We all financially benefit on this podcast from this bill.
Yeah.
I think,
I mean, but it's
a bad bill.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So who was the Republican Supreme Court justice that said taxes are the prices or the price you pay for a civilized society? Do you remember anybody remember who that was? Was that Warren maybe? Or was he the porn one? I don't know.
No, that was Potter Stewart.
So there was a Republican Supreme Court justice said taxes are the prices you pay for a civilized society, and so like I'm fine paying my fair share in taxes, just like you guys all are. What I want is I want the Elon Musks and the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world to pay their fucking fair share of taxes.
Yeah,
because it's not fair that my neighbor's startup pays a higher effective tax rate than Amazon does.
Yeah,
but. I don't know how anybody, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, any Green Party, any of the other parties out there can look at this bill and say I'm perfectly fine taking $600 billion out of Medicaid, $200 billion out of SNAP, and then also triggering the pay-go provisions of Medicare and taking $500 billion out of Medicare. Like, you're literally hurting the poorest people amongst us, the most vulnerable amongst us, to give tax cuts to the people who need them the least. Oh, and then, by the way, you're going to make them pay more in taxes because, newsflash, if you're listening to this podcast and you make less than $50,000 a year, your taxes are going up. So you're going to pay more in taxes for this bullshit.
Well, and if you make less than what's the Medicaid expansion threshold? 21,000. Something in that range.
It's like 200% of poverty. So whatever poverty is.
Yeah. It's some in the low 20s.
Yeah.
If you make less than that, your taxes are really going up because you're probably going to lose your Medicaid.
Yeah. So like in my state, in Ohio.
And also your food stamps. Don't forget that part.
Yeah. And so in my state in Ohio, the Republicans in the General Assembly who dominate it wrote a provision into this year's budget that if the federal government lowers Medicaid expansion dollars by 1 penny, that the entire Medicaid expansion is terminated.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. That was that was a headline that I had to like read, then reread.
Yeah.
And then like get into the article and be like, are you guys really shitting me?
So and if you live in a rural part of your state, even if you think like, oh well, my hospital is largely, private insurance, I'm gonna be fine. No, the fuck you are, because what props up rural hospitals that have low censuses is Medicaid expansion specifically. So, like I know in my county, if the hospital that's out in the more rural part of my county closes, it's like a 40-minute drive to the nearest hospital. Imagine your kid walking down the stairs in the middle of the night, you know what I mean? He falls, bumps his head, and you got to rush him to the ER. You got a 40-minute drive to get there. Or, you have a heart attack, or, you're out there doing yard work and you get bit by a snake. You got a long way to go, buddy. So this bill is just, this is just like, I don't know how they're calling it the fact that nobody in the Democratic Party so far has branded it the big, beautiful bullshit, or like the big bullshit bill or some shit.
Bill, yeah.
Yeah. Like because that's all that this is a gigantic transfer of wealth, like Justin said, to like the richest amongst us, and they don't even try and hide it. Like Donald Trump's own alma mater said that if you make more than hold on, I have the graph pulled up here. If you make more than $4.3 million, congratulations, you're getting 400 grand back. But the family that's barely struggling, that's struggling to get by, barely making it, that makes, we'll say 50 grand a year, right? So let's say you make 50 grand a year and you're on Medicaid expansion. You're losing your Medicaid expansion if you live in Ohio. And then, oh, by the way, they also want an extra $600 in taxes out of you because your taxes are going up to help fund this bullshit. Mm-hmm. Come on, this is just fucking stupid. I'm not even like, this isn't even like policy differences or like, this is just full blown balls deep corruption. Like the richest amongst us literally bought themselves a fucking president, mm-hmm. and this is their reward.
Well, and there's also, aside from the effects on the poorest people, we also have the knock-on effect of, I'm going to give you guys the old question that George H.W. Bush couldn't answer in the 1992 debate with Bill Clinton. How does the deficit personally affect you? Well, it raises interest rates. Mm-hmm. It raises mortgage rates. If you want to refinance, if you want a new house, the deficit going through the roof is going to make you pay more for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think Chris in our group chat was I think he posted that like homeowner like applications for loans are at an all-time low. And to expand,
home prices are at home prices right now are at an all-time high. Application rates are at an all-time low because people already can't afford homes. Now, let's continue to skyrocket the mortgage interest rate. And it's also, not to get too deep in like the economic weeds here, but the deficit is really bad for treasury bills. Like it's not hard to like, it's like when you want to get financed by your own bank, right? One of the things they consider is, okay, well, how many other people do you owe money to? Right. It's the same thing here. When our deficit balloons and skyrockets, the treasury rate plummets. And when the treasury rate plummets, the stock market plummets. That's what got baby hands to flip on tariffs the first place is the bond market went nuts.
Right.
Well, the bond market isn't even going nuts anymore. It's just the bond market is just completely uninterested. This past week, we had our downgrade, but we also had a treasury offering that really was not considered attractive in the bond market. And it's really just not going to take very much longer before something gives. Either the bill gives or we experience what Liz Truss experienced in the UK.
Yeah.
With her budget. And I'd really prefer not to experience that because that would speak to a really bleak financial future for the U.S. Since it would really reflect the international market moving away from using the dollar, which we've built our entire economy around. But
the world economy.
So why don't you, for anybody who's not familiar, why don't you elaborate and tell them what would happen if, for example, the Chinese yen were to become the currency that backs the rest of the world?
Well, for starters, it won't be China's currency. They don't.
No, but just as hypothetically,
So hypothetically, if we no longer have the dollar being the global reserve currency, our debt offerings will, frankly, just right now we're always able to find buyers for our debt,
right?
Because it has the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, and it's used by everyone. If the U.S. dollar is no longer used by everyone, our debt will cost us a lot more. We will have a marginally easier time exporting goods because we won't actually have to maintain a very strong currency, but our losses on the other side of that deal are going to be catastrophically worse for us. It's why no one prior to Donald Trump was stupid enough to think that getting rid of the dollar as a global reserve currency was a good idea. But, well, he's used to real estate where you just declare bankruptcy as a negotiating tactic and say that the bank has a huge problem on its hands. Well, globally, the bank doesn't have a problem if you enter sovereign default. You have an enormous fucking problem, though.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what, Greece has had to do it twice now, I think, something like that. But yeah, I mean, that would just be a disaster. Almost as, you know, this bill is just very, you know, someone, I forget who it was. It's an old adage that's been around for forever. That's, you know, show me your budget and I'll show you your priorities. And not only is that true in your own personal life, but it's especially true in government. Yeah. When you look and this budget and every Republican that voted for it, it's very clear that their priorities are appeasing the ultra wealthy and the folks that, you know, that make gigantic contributions to them, and they don't care about the average John Doe. It's just like this tax on overtime shit, right? Like, and, you know, you want to get rid of tax on overtime? Oh, sorry, Adam. Sorry, my internet's garbage, and I didn't realize you were talking until I was on my soapbox again.
Oh no worries. I just I started a sentence when I thought you were taking a breath, and then it wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be. Just for all of the, oh, it's two wings of the same plane, both parties are the same. You say all the Republicans that voted for this. I want to make clear, no Democrats voted for this.
Not one.
Fuck that shit.
Yeah, not one.
Yeah,
and you know, and if you saw, for anyone who's never watched the House debate, the leader of each party gets what's called a magic minute at the end of debate, where like they get the closing minute, but the minute is just indefinite. They can go on for realistically as long as they want, up to, I forget what it is. It's like up to the length of the debate itself or something like that, since there's no actual filibuster in the House. And at one point in time, Hakeem Jeffries stopped the guy who kept interrupting them, and he said, "Hey, I don't work for you. I work for the American people." And there's nowhere that it's more evident that there's one party that actually works for the American people, and there's another party that works for the 44 billionaires or something like that are in America. And this budget shows that. I mean, you know, before I started to talk about this before, this provision about tax on overtime. You want to take the tax off the overtime? Okay, let's do it. I'm all for it. You want to remove tax on tips, tax on overtime, tax on Social Security? I think every other Democrat would get on board. And I know that to be true because we just passed the No Tax on Tips Act 100-0 in the Senate.
Mm-hmm. Well, the no tax on cash tips.
Well, right.
Yeah,
which nobody discloses anyways.
Right. Well, yeah, that's a good point, and we can talk about that a little bit later. I threw the budget bill into ChatGPT earlier while we were messing around, and this new bill that they passed does have an exemption in the House for tax on tips and then also on overtime.
Right.
So that's in the new one.
Right, but here's the thing. Is it's not actually going to increase your take-home pay by one singular dollar. So like the blue collar guys that, you know, that might work 20 or 30 hours worth of overtime a week, it's not going to increase that take-home pay by one single dollar. What it does is it creates a tax deduction at the end of the year. So if you're not itemizing, I don't know the specifics of the way that they have this created, but with a lot of deductions, if you don't itemize, if you don't make enough money to itemize, they don't apply to you anyways, because you're better off taking the standard deduction.
And it's hard to fall into that category anyway, because one of the few good things that came out of the last Trump tax bill was they doubled the standard deduction.
Correct.
Right.
The standard deduction is better for almost everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what my tax guy tells me every year.
Right.
Like, I submit all my shit, and he's like, "This is stupid."
Yeah. Yeah. Just go do it through Free Tax USA and use the standard deduction. You don't need my services.
We're getting rid of that, Chris.
We're getting rid of what?
The free file for the IRS.
Oh yeah, that's not. So there's an actual private company that does tax stuff. It's like freetaxusa.com or something like that. All that you pay is for like audit services. I've used it a couple times. It's actually pretty good.
I had a little momentary stroke because I thought you were saying that the big beautiful bill got rid of the double standard deduction, and I was
no,
I didn't know about that. And I was about to get real unhappy.
No, that's to finish my thought on that though. So if you're one of those blue collar guys, for example, and you're a law enforcement officer, a lot of police officers, they make their money. You know, they make a lot of money doing overtime. It's not going to actually increase the amount of money you're going to take home at all. It's just going to increase. It's just going to create a deduction that you can use for overtime. And if it's not structured in a way that you can use it without it being part of itemized deductions, you're not going to get it. And then B, if you are someone that is going to use it, it phases out at a certain point, and it also is just going to lower your tax liability. So let's say that your tax on overtime was $10,000. Your tax liability is $11,000. You're still going to owe $1,000 at the end of the year. So you're actually not getting a single dollar back into your pocket, which is when most Americans actually need it. They don't need it at tax time. They need it right now. So it's just more. How did you word it earlier when we were talking about this woo fuckery or something like that?
Yeah. It's just economic woo fuckery, budget woo fuckery.
To sum up, because we've been talking about this for a long time.
Well, I want to say one more thing.
Go ahead, Woods.
Yeah, I want to say one thing on what Chris was saying about how rural hospitals and things like that are going to be absolutely decimated by this bill, and one of the knock-on effects of that you can think about is when you lose a hospital near you, and it turns out that the nearest one is 45 to an hour minute, 60 minutes away. That has a knock-on effect of like businesses in the area will have a really hard time to either stay operable or to recruit people there, because nobody wants to take a job and then learn that, like you said, if you have kids, that the nearest hospital is 60 minutes away. Like that's not an optimal place to live and work. So you're like, I'm going to pass on this job. And the people that end up being able to be like, I'm going to pass on this job, or I'm going to move out of this area, tend to be people that have college degrees and, a higher level of education. That tends to be Democrats. So what you end up so this bill is going to do something that they don't, that is, you pass this bill, rural areas lose hospitals. Democrats, just because they have more mobility than people with a lesser education, that tends to be Republicans in the world today. So the Democrats move away, and the places that are hardest hit by this bill are going to just become more and more Republican strongholds, which is just mind-blowing in how this works out. And then, we've all had the discussion with somebody that's like, I voted for this and it's going to fuck me, Like that's what's going to happen in the next 5 years or so. And we need to make sure, and Democrats need to make sure that when MSNBC goes to interview a pile of, a triangular pile of MAGA hats in some rural county somewhere, that they're like, this happened to you because of because of the Republican Party policies that you voted for. Like, we can't let this just like, all right, well, shit happened with the budget, and now I, don't have a hospital. It has knock-on effects that are going to be really, really bad for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's bad for everybody. So it's bad for everybody. So, but we can sit here and we can
yeah. We could have this conversation until I pass out in this chair, just drinking, and just fall over, and you guys do the podcast. But
so let's switch it up. Let's go to the tush push.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's talk about the tush push for a minute, because it's sort of political, because Jason Kelce got out there and he lobbied. It was nice. They brought in, they basically followed the political playbook. They brought in some surrogates, like the Eagles brought in some surrogates. Jason Kelce got out there and lobbied with his beautiful family, I think, if I remember right. I know we already know where you fall on this. Like, you're an Eagles fan. You're one of the few people I know too that's been an Eagles fan since before they were before they were fantastic. What's that?
My whole life.
Yeah. So like, I'll be honest, I'm glad that they didn't ban the tush push because like I fall into the camp of like most of the teams, if not all of the team, they're over there like talking about like player safety. It's not about player safety. You're just mad you can't stop it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the league went to the Packers and said, "We want to ban this. Will you introduce it?" And the Packers were like, "Why us?" And the league said, "Because you have no one singular owner for people to like specifically organize. Like this person's a shit bag because they're banning the tush push."
I didn't
So
even
it
think
needs
about
to
that.
be
How do they vote that? How do they vote in there? The majority shareholder gets the say in the owners vote?
It's well, I mean, the Green Bay Packers are also owned by the city of Green Bay.
Oh, okay. I thought they were sheerly like publicly owned, like that they
Yeah.
were just like an all stock. Okay, all right, that makes more sense. Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah,
the majority stockholder is the city of Green Bay, and
Yeah.
there's a clause that if they ever sell the franchise to sell the franchise period, the proceeds go to a nonprofit, like to a charity. So there's
Yeah.
no financial.
wait. So
reason to
does the mayor of Green Bay get a say at the owners meeting? Is that how that goes?
I think it's split between 4 trustees,
Oh, okay.
or some ridiculous ownership structure with a bunch of different people and 4 people.
Yeah, that's actually. I mean, honestly, I think that's fascinating. I'll be honest with you that it's a publicly owned team like that. I think that's fascinating.
The NFL prohibited any other city from doing this.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Why wouldn't they? When
Yeah.
when the average person can be a part owner of an NFL team, why would you want that? When fucking you got to be a billionaire to do everything.
Yeah.
But-
So Woods, part owner of the Packers that he is,
right.
Tried to ban the tush push because his team couldn't stop
I voted against it.
And
wait, was there an actual like owners
No.
poll that went around?
No,
Oh, okay.
No.
Every year they send out some like questionnaire for the vast majority of owners to elect these trustees that Charles is talking about.
All right.
Yeah. That's as far. And
Yeah.
I guess I could go to the meeting if I wanted to, but
Yeah, you're like every other stockholder though. They never do.
Right.
Yeah. So the league recruited the Packers for this exact reason, and really the attempted tush push ban, which failed 22-10, just like the Packers in the playoffs against the Eagles,
was uncalled for. Uncalled for. It's too late at night for that shit.
Really, just like this perfect encapsulation of what I view of as like everything wrong with society. You have 1 or 2 people who are fairly powerful creating this bureaucratic entity that is completely opaque and saying, take your grievances about this to the bureaucratic entity that is completely opaque. So you can't actually be mad at any one single individual. And they tried to take away something that was actually a really great part of the game. It is a pure football play. It is who's stronger and who wants the yard more. That's it. And that's usually the Eagles' offensive line.
I'm telling you, until
can I
they
be
meet the
clear?
Buccaneers' defensive line this year.
Yeah, are you saying that the Packers are what's wrong with America, or just the
I think he's saying
it was brought about?
I that's what I think he's saying. I don't think he's saying that you're what's wrong in America.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth. Maybe he is, but
the process here is really like what's wrong. You pick the Packers because there's no singular owner specifically. It's just kind of this amorphous blob that can put a rule change forward, and that was actually like the league's reason for picking them. For this rule change, from what I'm seeing in contemporary reports. So
the Raiders voted to ban, and I'm a shameless partisan who toes the party line. So I guess I'm against the tush push now.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, you can't stop it, Adam. You can't stop it.
Yeah, you and that little ass defensive line, you ain't stopping.
Maybe once Christian Wilkins gets off the injury list, we can.
I really doubt it. Look, if there were like a real argument against this, okay, cool. There just isn't one. It's a less dangerous version of the QB sneak, which uses the exact same formation.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, as a Pats fan, Brady had been using a version of the tush push for forever anyways. If you've ever watched Tom Brady QB sneak, he's not running a QB draw like a lot of other quarterbacks do that are more mobile than he is. He was already getting right up underneath the center and using the center's mass to drive the ball forward. He was just looking to move out of a gap instead of having the center do the work for him. I agree with Charles on this one. I agree with the teams that didn't vote to ban it. Like, just get better at it. You know what I mean? Like, just get better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the other issue is really just you have teams like Buffalo that say, "Oh, we run the tush push and we want to ban it." Let's take a look at Buffalo's tush pushes.
Yeah, I feel like they were pretty bad.
Yeah, Josh Allen,
which is weird because Josh Allen is so athletic.
Well, he's athletic, but he just I think he and Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills just fundamentally don't understand how to run the play. You don't go high with the quarterback.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that though isn't Josh Allen like 6'9", 6'10"?
That's his.
I don't know how low you can get him.
Yeah, that's his fault.
Put the backup in. Seriously.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. You could put an average sized backup in.
Yeah, but isn't that a telegraph?
Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter if you telegraph it or not.
I mean,
it's got a 92% success rate when, I mean, every time you were at, 4th and 1 or, 4th and goal from the 1 or the 2, you knew it was coming. You fucking Jason Kelsey could have gone out there and told you it was coming and then had Jalen Hurts, broadcast it on a loudspeaker. You still weren't stopping it.
Yeah. There's a great clip of Jordan Mailata when he was mic'd up telling, I forget which team's defense, it's coming. You can't stop it.
Just side note, did you know he's a really good singer?
Who?
Yeah,
Jordan Mailata, like he does him and some of the other members of the Eagles apparently do a Christmas album.
Nice.
Yes, Jason Kelsey started it with the offensive line.
It's just wild.
I'm 100% behind all of this.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna buy it this year if it's for sale, or I'm just gonna I'll go back to the Napster days and pirate it more likely. But
yeah, the Eagles are a really easy team.
Don't come for me with that RIA if you're still out there.
But
all right, so to sum up, tush push is not banned. Unfortunately,
and Adam is currently having an existential crisis because he's got a
party line.
Yeah.
So the tush push is bad. It is bad that it is not banned.
Yeah,
that is my official statement.
Yeah. That's a good statement. I like where you land on that.
You could just Susan Collins it and say you're concerned for player safety.
I'm concerned. I'm very concerned at all times.
I'm
a Raiders fan. I've been concerned. Sure. I'm a Raiders fan. I've been concerned for the past 22 years.
So before we move off this topic, I want to bring up something that has popped up over social media a bunch of times, and I just Googled it and I looked it up, and it's apparently not confirmed, so it could be a rumor, it could not be true, but apparently college football coach Mike Leach was apparently once talked down in a coach's meeting from trying to line up a little person in the backfield and then give them the ball and just throw them over the line of scrimmage. He apparently said, other than the optics of doing this, why wouldn't this be allowed? And logistically, wouldn't it work? Now that's apparently a rumor, and this
that's
article
just wrong on so many different
right.
But seriously though, is there a rule that would stop it? I mean, is there anything that says that you can't throw the human being, that it has to be the ball?
What's the difference between a jump and a loft?
Well, so there are rules around when you can leave your feet now, especially if you're trying to time snap counts.
Okay.
But I mean, you gotta also though, that's not easier than throwing a ball. Unless you're talking about picking up my 2.5-year-old son, putting him in some pads, and then going and overhead throwing him like you're playing soccer.
Well, but I think that's literally what they were talking. That raises the question. If you throw a player holding the ball over the line and the defensive player catches that player, is it an interception?
Can you take that player and do a pick six with it? Who has possession?
We need somebody that we need a football referee to come give us answers.
Yeah.
So actually,
we need a referee to come give us answers.
To answer that question, the runner's forward progress would have been halted the second the defensive player started running backwards, carrying that player. And so the ball would be placed where the forward progress
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
But who has possession? Is it an interception?
I'm sure, and I'm
No,
sure.
I assume you would have to actually physically take the ball, not the person.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm seeing the defensive player catch him, and then there's just this mad like clawing at the ball, both of them. Yeah.
This is just to be clear to anybody who is a knower of ball. That was a joke. I don't seriously believe that would be an interception.
I just want answers on if you can do it. I don't want you to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see anybody out there throwing toddlers attached to footballs.
Yeah.
I mean, I would see that. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, we're worried enough for, head TCs as it is right now. Like, we don't need to be chucking people at other people.
Yeah, and if not, shit, maybe they should spend more time banning that instead of banning the tush push.
Well, they already did that. They can move on to that now.
Well, they've already banned little people from Major League Baseball thanks to one owner back in like the 50s, I want to say.
Is that
seems
real?
like disability discrimination?
Yeah, I mean, Adam's a lawyer, and he beat me to it. I was going to say, it doesn't sound legal.
Yeah, so the owner of, I think it was Cleveland's team,
Actually, listen to Woods frantically Googling.
Oh, no, I know. No, yeah.
Decided that what he would do was have a little person as a pinch hitter because his strike zone would be like 6 inches. So there was, and have him, have his natural stance be that he was like all hunched over. And it lasted like one game, and then Major League Baseball said, "You're not doing this again," and banned little people.
So how is the rule word? Is there like
that sounds
MLB?
Yeah, I'm not even like a real lawyer like Adam is, and I'm still like, that sounds illegal as shit.
Yeah, okay, they effectively implemented it. It's not a formal rule. With St. Louis, because of 1951.
I'm just on bated breath that has never been legally challenged.
Yeah.
Oh, so the way they did it apparently was make all contracts. This was where all contracts are subject to commissioner approval. And so the commissioner just never approves those contracts.
See, I think that's
yeah.
I mean,
if you've been discriminated against by Bob Manfred, call Adam.
Yeah,
he'll get you hooked up.
I mean, I am willing to take a class action.
I mean,
everybody with dwarfism who wants to play Major League Baseball, call me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to be flippant about this, but we did this shit in Little League. One of my really good friends in second grade was very just small in stature, and that was his job, was to go out there and just hunch down and get walked. But this is just silly. That's a silly take on it. Also,
I think it's obvious to most people, but just like to make it very clear, that was a joke. I am not proposing.
Jesus Christ, Adam, we all know you're a lawyer. Calm down.
Yes, we know. You look 12, but you are in fact a real lawyer.
Right.
Nobody call me. That was a joke.
Actually,
unless you're serious, then call him because he'll probably take your money.
I will put your number in the show notes. It'll be fine. There we go. All right, so let's change topics to a little bit more serious discussion of the fact that I believe that Kash Patel and Diane Bongino killed Epstein themselves. And I want you guys to tell me that they didn't, because they're clearly part of the deep state now, because they both Kash Patel, I believe, did not have his own podcast. Don Bongino did have his own podcast. Kash Patel was just on a lot of very, let's just say, Nazi adjacent podcasts for a long time. And they both have said for years that, of course, there's no way Epstein could have killed himself. This is it. They killed him because of all of his connections to the Clintons and everything. And now they sat down and said, well, we saw the file, and he thought he killed himself.
Can we pause for a second too, that we're talking about them in like a serious lens, not like a crazy podcast lens? Like, we're literally talking about the director and the deputy director of the FBI, and we had to say Kash Patel and Dan, whatever the fuck his name is.
Dan Bongino.
Yeah. I mean,
it's to your point, Chris, it is silly that we have to discuss this like this, but
it's also silly that they're somehow not the worst parts of this administration.
True.
Like, let that sink in. That like they're not somehow the worst part.
Kristi Noem just did a.
Oh, Kristi Noem is by far. She's trying to run away with that award, like of being the worst DHS secretary in history.
Yeah.
Kash Patel was the nominee that I was the most concerned about, but he hasn't been the confirmed appointee.
No, it's like he moved in. It's like he moved in, and the gravity of having his office at the top of the Hoover Building was like, oh shit, I have real responsibilities here.
And then he ghosted him because all he does is like go to sporting events and shit. Like he just takes the plane wherever he wants. Like. That, and you know what? If he wants to keep doing that, fine by me.
But so, anyways, back to what we were talking about. I'm going to be honest. I'm not like a conspiracy theorist by any means, but what it tells me, if those two nuts got their hands on the Epstein file and read it from start to finish and read all of the evidence, that they're just trying to cover for somebody more important at this point. Like, not to put on a tinfoil hat. But that's the only thing that I can think of, because that the guy who tried to get rich selling the COVID vaccine reversal, he'd be screaming from the rooftops if there was really if he wasn't A, trying to protect somebody more important, or B, he really did kill himself.
Yeah, I was going to say, or hear me out, a guy who had become accustomed to a life of privilege and luxury and was staring down the business end of spending the rest of his life in prison as a sex offender, has some pretty powerful incentives to off himself.
Yeah, I mean, again, I see, honestly, I do see, I hate to be like the both sides of it, but like this is like the one conspiracy theory that just like the ends don't meet for me, right? Like 99.9% of conspiracy theories, I can be like, no, that's just bullshit. But like this one, for some reason, just the ends just don't match. And I can't for the life of me figure out what. And I'm not meant to. I'll be honest with you. I'm not meant to. I'm not meant to figure it out because A, it has no bearing on my daily life.
Right.
And B, like I'm not losing any sleep because Jeffrey Epstein's dead, no matter how he died.
Right.
But like also they're just like, I'm one of those people too that like there are some things that the government doesn't need to tell me. I don't need to know. You know what I mean? Like I'm perfectly fine accepting the generally accepted he killed himself, right? Except like in this case, it's almost like that's not the generally accepted answer.
Yeah, it's the problem is, and I feel exactly what you're saying. The problem is like the events that led up to, him killing himself were so like scripted.
Yeah,
it was almost out of like an HBO documentary that says like, yeah, we're taking some facts, but we're taking liberties with other things, so we make it a good show.
And I think maybe there's like a third option here, that the cover up is just really on how bad the system failed on a guy who was on suicide watch.
Yeah, like whoever the three guys who were supposed to watch him, they're like, man, did we fuck up? And then their superiors are like, yeah, but do we really give a shit that he killed himself?
Right.
And then everybody's like, we don't really, because I'm with you, Chris. Like, I lose zero sleep over whether or not Jeffrey Epstein killed himself or not. I don't give a shit that he's dead.
The only place that I even have any sort of woe here is just the simple fact that, correct me if I'm wrong, you're a lawyer, but isn't it going to be harder to carve his estate up to pay his victims now that he's dead?
I don't know. I'm not that kind of lawyer.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you just, class action lawsuits with people in the MLB.
But, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's my practice area now. Nothing else. I'm not taking any other cases.
So
that's his sole area of practice now.
what I will say, as somebody who pays attention to the really stupid parts of the internet, we're talking the Alex Joneses, we're talking the Tucker Carlsons.
We get it. You're on the dark web. Just
that's not how I buy my heroin a different way than that now, because it's a whole thing. But what is really funny about this whole, like, all right, he totally, them sitting down and saying in an interview, is like the mid-tier hucksters that have been like just bleeding about this for years have nowhere to go.
No,
because
nowhere.
Like, for somebody like Alex Jones or Tucker Carlson, they've had Dan Bongino on their show and just licked him up one side and down the other about how awesome of a patriot is, and how when he gets in there, he's going to tell us the truth. And this is the truth. And they're like, shit. Like, they have nowhere to go with it. And they're literally acting like it didn't happen. And that's the best.
Anybody out in the Alex Jones tier of crazy sphere who has just totally turned on them and decided that they're like agents of the deep state?
I'm sorry, who? Are there people that have?
Yeah, he's asking, as you as our resident expert of the dirty corners of the internet.
So the people that are trying to turn a coin on this, like the Alex Joneses and the Tucker Carlsons, they are staying radio silent about it. They're acting like it didn't happen.
But like none of them are mad enough to just completely like, no, they're part of the deep state now. Like Laura Loomer is not trying to get him fired.
Well, Laura Loomer has probably said that at some point, and Marjorie Taylor Greene has said something similar to that. But nobody that's really just trying to churn money, like that really tries to float on this space to make a living, they're just radio fucking silent. The lower tier people that are getting are trying to get clicks and get up into that sphere, the people that are trying to go from like, having a YouTube show or a podcast to being Alex Jones or something, or a guest on a show, those people are livid. And then you have the upper tier that don't care like about the money. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Well, one, she's rich already. Two, she's already a congressperson. That's I don't know her district off the top of my head, but it's like red plus 30 or something. She's safe.
It's a pretty red district.
Yeah, so she can just be a complete loon for as long as she wants to, because she already has the money and she already has influence. So that's why she's on Twitter, talking shit about, the government and Grok. She recently came out and said like Grok is leftist now because it whatever her problem
wasn't. It just trying to peddle the white South African genocide conspiracy theory? Like, didn't they just catch it trying to push those search results?
Yeah. Yeah, it did that after Donald Trump's absolutely bonkers sit down in the White House with the president of South Africa.
Can we just give him a moment of respect for him saying to that man's face, "I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you."
Yeah. That was amazing. The president of South Africa was talking to the president of the United States and said, "I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give to you." And President Trump said, and I shit you not, this is a direct quote, "I wish you did. I would take it."
I mean, I'm sure he would.
And I know we're all tired of playing the imagine if a Democrat said that hypothetical, but
right. I mean, what if Barack Obama accepted a tan plane from Qatar? What would we do?
Listen, speaking of tan, real quick, on a final note on the big bullshit bill.
Yeah.
Where did they land on exempting excise taxes on tanning beds? Did you guys not know about this part? There was a provision in the original draft of the bill that removed the excise tax on tanning beds. Who do you think that was there to benefit? Is it maybe the guy who's painted orange every time he gets on fucking camera?
We could have a separate podcast about what we think that Donald Trump slathers himself with to look like that. I know he tans, but his ears are white, his eyes are white.
Yeah, it's gotta be. Anyways. But yeah, so it feels like we're all pretty like. It feels like me and Woods are pretty well in the camp of like Epstein killed himself and now Kash Patel and them are covering it up for somebody else. Whereas like Adam's like the rational one here. I need to know where Charles falls on this. Because like I can't be the radical on this call.
Look, he killed himself in jail because he was like he was gonna spend the rest of his life as a sex offender in federal prison.
Okay, so Charles, we're now 50-50 between the conspiracy theorists and the rationalists on this podcast.
No,
I'm sorry. Like sometimes
No. We both, Woods and I both said that neither one of us care enough to really, you know what I mean?
I don't care enough, but if I've got to vote, he killed himself. There's not a cabal that killed him.
All right, well, I'm in the minority then.
That's fine.
I was going to say, we need to get a fifth member of this podcast. We don't. There's nobody crazy.
We need to get an NFL referee to settle this, and
I'm sorry. Like sometimes the simplest explanation is like actually just the explanation.
Yeah, isn't that
and you kind of have to live with it.
Isn't that an actual like theory? Yeah, the simplest explanation is often the truest or something.
All right.
So yeah, again, like if he killed himself, great. I'm glad that he's dead one way or another. You know, like I would have loved to have helped him hang himself.
I'm actually kind of sad that he's not spending the rest of his natural life in solitary confinement in federal prison because he's like he was an absolutely disgusting human being. But like, I could deal with a world without him. That's fine too.
I don't know. I think I'm just gonna keep. I think I'm gonna keep believing that it's probably because Donald Trump was on his flight log so many times that they're
I will say this for Jeffrey Epstein. He did something that the House Republicans could never do and saved the government a lot of money.
That's true.
It's true. That would have been an expensive trial.
Yeah.
That would have been an expensive trial.
And to follow up saving the federal government money, I would like to point out that Chris is correct and that federal did excise the tax on indoor tanning services that was repealed in the budget bill.
There you go. Tan away, folks.
Everything's coming up Millhouse.
Not like it's fucking summer and you can just go outside.
All right, let's keep this train rolling.
All right. The last thing on the agenda, and I don't know if we want to do we want to end on outdoor lawn care or do we want to talk about DC terror attack?
I want to talk about DC terror attack.
It's serious and we got to talk about it.
Yeah, I agree, but
Charles, take it away.
Charles, it was your intention not to end on a lighter note, but I believe we need to talk about this before we talk about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can do outside cooking and lawn care after, and just do another one of that later. But yeah, so there was a Jewish young professionals party in Washington D.C. And some fucking asshole whose name I'm not going to say because he doesn't deserve.
I would delete it if he did. I would delete it if he did.
Decided that like what he really needed to do to like free Palestine was go to this Jewish young professionals party and kill people. And so that's what he did. I've the reason I wanted to talk about this was first, it's really obvious that what he chose to engage in was an act of anti-Semitic terrorism. And if you disagree with that, then you can just go fuck yourself. But also, and this is the other reason, unfortunately, a lot of people who identify with the left and to some extent the right as well are just bending over backwards with this attack to try to figure out a way to say that it either wasn't anti-Semitic or was justified, or my personal favorite, well, murder is wrong, but did you see the tweets of one of the victims? Or some other kind of nonsense along those lines. And usually whenever you start you follow up murder is wrong, but with you actually don't think murder is wrong. So
what's that old saying? Anything before the but is bullshit.
Yeah. yeah, and I'm gonna be really honest. I'm fucking sick of this shit from people. Like, it doesn't help anyone if you behave like a psychopath on the internet for clout. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
And if you, as a random person living in America with absolutely no connection to this issue, but what you see on your feed, have a really strong opinion about it, you're the problem. You really are. I don't care where you come down on it. Like you specifically, that person who sees all of this stuff, has no connection to it, no real desire to research anything outside of your biases or research in ways that don't confirm your biases. Like you very specifically, whichever side you're supporting in the Middle East, you're the problem, and fuck you very much. So, I'm sorry guys. I just like a little bit of a rant there, but
cook.
It's just
and that does not the main point of this discussion here, because the main point of this discussion here is that this was a senseless, evil act that killed two people who weren't. I mean, no matter what you think of anything going on in the war in Gaza, these two people didn't have anything to do with it.
Not a thing.
But connecting this back to the ethos of this, the entire underlying purpose of this podcast, telling people you are not freeing Palestine by saying psychotic things on Twitter. You are not freeing Israel from terrorist threats by saying psychotic things on Twitter. You are not a combatant in this exchange. You're just looking like a psychopath.
What is the
sympathy to victims and don't do anything beyond that?
And I know that there are a lot of very, very strong opinions on both, on the pro-Israel and pro-Palestine side. But political violence, I'm not even going to say 99% of the time. Political violence 100% of the time harms the cause that you care about.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Because I don't care what side of the argument you come down on, the minute you take especially an innocent person's life, you've just damaged your cause in the eyes of everyone else. You know what I mean? Like there's not one sane person that can watch what happened in DC and think that that's normal behavior. You know what I mean? Like you should not need to fear for your life when you go to a young professionals networking event, just because it happens to be at correct me if I'm wrong, it was at the Israeli embassy, right?
No, not even.
No, it was 5 miles away from the Israeli embassy.
Oh, what? I thought that it was at the Israeli. That's even, yeah, like that's.
No, it was at like a Jewish cultural museum. So, which kind of gives the lie to the line that a lot of people are taking on Twitter that like, oh, well, this was an act of blah, 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 because they killed people who were working in the Jewish embassy. That was by accident. They just attacked a random group of Jewish professionals.
Right.
Do you know the most staggering fact about terrorism? Do you know the most staggering statistic about terrorism? It has a 100% failure rate. It has never been successful.
There is no movement in history that has been advanced by sporadic instances of street violence.
Correct. Yeah. It has a 100% failure rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. There's also just, sorry, I got a little bit upset about this one.
No, I mean it's an upsetting thing. It's especially for for a member of the Jewish faith. It's like it. You don't have to apologize for getting upset about it.
But yeah, the difficult thing about this was, as soon as it happened, I knew with absolute certainty within like 20 minutes how the next 24 hours were going to play out online.
Yep.
And there were going to be a group of people who said, well, actually, they worked for the embassy, so it wasn't anti-Semitic to kill them, because, disagreeing with Israel's right to exist.
The amount of mental gymnastics it has to take to formulate a sentence like that in your head and say it with your whole chest.
Yeah, and then there was going to be a group of people who like said that it was actually a good thing, and that group of people was actually going to be pretty large. And they do exist, unfortunately. One of them is a former Democratic congressional candidate from Florida, Rebecca Jones, from what I've seen, and there are going to be others.
I will, just to caveat that status a little bit. Rebecca Jones is a psychopath, and she ran in a completely unwinnable district.
Yeah, she is.
Shocked, I tell you. Shocked.
And it's incredibly frustrating to see a lot of people who should theoretically have at least one brain cell rattling around in their skull, indulging arguments. And there was like indulging these arguments in the first place that this was somehow justified or justifiable, or anything other than exactly what it was, which was anti-Semitic terrorism.
Right.
Even if you wanted to try to step back and do the gymnastics you're talking about, murder's not justifiable.
Yeah, and if you're saying, well, I don't support murder, but just stop.
Yeah.
Just really do yourself a favor and stop.
Yeah. Again, the butt.
Yeah.
With my 6-year-old, we're going over inside thoughts. Things we don't say.
But whether it's an inside thought or an outside thought, if you have had the thought of trying to find a way in your head to justify senseless violence like this, go cut your grass, go cut your neighbor's grass, go get off the internet and realize that, like Charles said, you were definitively the problem in political dialogue.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So, it's all fun. Like we have, we all have fun and games poking fun at the other side of the aisle, because it's pretty clear where we all fall here. But there's no situation where poking fun at the other side of the aisle should turn into an act of domestic terrorism. That's not.
Yeah, and also I am just gonna kind of touch on a little Judaism thing for a minute. I've seen a lot of reporting about the religious affiliation of one of the victims.
I've seen like some talk about that too. So please.
Yeah.
Expand.
So okay. First, I'm going to say that all of the people who I've seen who've been particularly concerned with his religious affiliation have been people who are approaching this entire situation with what I view as a shocking amount of bad faith, because they've largely been trying to say that because he was a patrilineally descended Jew who belonged to a segment of Judaism that also has opinions about Jesus, that he's somehow not a Jew. If you as a non-Jew have opinions about who is and is not a Jew, keep those to yourself. We do too. And ours are, you know, a little bit different than yours. And it might just be a good time to sit this one out, fellas. It really might. But, you know, I've seen his religion used as a, oh, well, it wasn't really anti-Semitism because I fundamentally don't understand Judaism or Messianic Judaism. So I'm just going to say, and this was actually a lot of lazy media coverage too. They were like, oh, he was a Christian.
Yeah, not to interrupt you, that's what I'd heard. People were floating that around, that this was not anti-Semitic violence because he was in fact a Christian, and like you're saying, like it's not a get out of jail free card for this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, first off, like even taking that claim at face value is absurd because the shooter went to a Jewish young professionals event with the express purpose of killing Jews.
Right.
Well, yeah, and to that point, like we said earlier, the victims were not, as far as we know, individually selected. He just targeted a Jewish event. If he actually had killed a Christian in that attack, this would still be an anti-Semitic attack.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
If Adam and I had been there just to have fun and have a couple of drinks, and we walked out and happened to be the two people he killed, it does not make it not an anti-Semitic violence.
Right.
He just shot the wrong two people for his stupid fucking plan.
So that's part A, but part B, if you as someone who has big feelings about an issue, in order to make yourself feel better about those big feelings and your position, you're trying to define a religion or a religious group or who belongs to it or something like that. You've definitely entered the go mow your lawn, go touch grass side of life, because that's what you need to do because you're in crazy town. And lastly, I have a very dear family friend who survived the Holocaust. She's a Messianic Jew. If you're telling me she's not Jewish, you're a fucking idiot. Like, you're actually a fucking idiot. And that goes for every media outlet that has reported on this as well. Stop trying to define other people's religious faiths. It's not helping you, and it's not helping your cause. Sorry, ran over. I promise.
No, you're good.
Don't apologize. It was a good rant.
Yeah, it does feel like a nice place
to hear.
Yeah, I was going to say it does feel like a nice, a nice jumping off point to to reiterate if none of that, if that didn't make sense about why political violence is never okay, it's probably time to go touch your grass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and I don't want to fall down my own rabbit hole here because I think Charles said it so perfectly. But Chris, cut your grass, fucking cut your neighbor's grass, cut the next neighbor's over grass. Just keep going.
Don't cut my grass though. Don't come cut my grass.
Really?
Well, no, I'm trying real hard to cut my grass, but we are now up to 11 days in a row that it has rained.
Yeah. Welcome to the Midwest.
But before we move off, I would like to say I would like to thank Charles for your comments. From somebody who is not religious and is looking at this from the outside, it's good to hear those perspectives, and I appreciate what you said.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also nice to hear it from like it's also nice to hear it from someone who doesn't have that sort of temperament to get fired up like that. That's how you know that what we're talking about is serious. So, but well, all right. Well, it's 11:07 here, so that's 2 hours past my bedtime. So
well, let's talk about mowing our lawns though and outdoor cooking. Like let's not do a downer for the end.
You want to end on a high note? Let's end on a high note.
We can make this real high and tight like our lawns.
My lawn's high right now. I need to if it rains again tomorrow, I'm gonna have to get out a machete.
Yeah. I feel your pain. And we can discuss our lawn care regimes in depth throughout this podcast. I'm sure we will. I hate to cut the grass. Actually, there's like 1,000 things I'd rather be doing. So I cut it every 2 weeks, whether it needs it or not. And then I actually got sick last weekend. So
I'm sorry. Did you just say every 2 weeks?
Yeah, whether it needs it or not.
I cut my grass every 3 days.
Yeah, because you are a reincarnation of my father-in-law, who would cut it every other day if he could figure out where the lines were. It's like there's a reason I shave my head every 2 days, because if I try to shave it every day, I can't tell. The hair's not long enough to tell where to shave my head. And same thing with your yard. But yeah, I got sick, so I had to push it to 3 weeks, and I was in Adam territory. But we talked we haven't mentioned this, but we did record a podcast that would have been the 3rd episode, but we had some technical difficulties, and we went really deep into cooking outdoors, and it made me think how much I enjoy cooking outdoors in every way possible. And that's kind of for me, I like to grill outside, but I was in Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout. I spent God knows how many hours cooking on an open fire, cast iron skillet, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I was not a hiker guy. So I was the guy who was like, yeah, you guys go walk around for 10 miles and come back to the same fucking place you left from. And when you get back, I'll have chili ready for you. I was the patrol mom. And so I just love cooking outside. We talked a lot about that last time, but one of the things if you have to cook outside, you got to take care of that lawn. The lawn has to be nice and clean while you're out there cooking. And I have some intel that some of you have issues with your lawns right now. Apparently Adam has to have a safari to get to his grill now. And Chris, you have some issues with ivy, I've been told.
Oh my God. Yeah. The ivy. So my neighbor next door, super nice guy. I'd say he's like a mid-ranged lawn care guy. He's not out there, he's like we all cut our grass. So then he comes out like a day or two later and cuts his. Totally fine. Whatever. But he's got this tree with this ivy that has jumped my fence and has taken over my trees in my own backyard.
Ooh, that's not good.
And has also taken over parts of the ground. So my wife and I are going to put in, I'm in the process of clearing it. Just nothing fancy, just clearing it with a nice flat shovel. And we're going to put in a fire pit there. And I'm just curious. I got to find something to do with this ivy. I don't know if it's I'm not paying to cut the guy's tree down, but I'm also not saying I'm not going to set it on fire. Allegedly, because
Adam's here.
So,
I know that my neighbors let all the shit grow up their side of the fence into my yard, and so at a certain point in the summer, once it's just too much for me, I will spray every bit of the vines on their side and my side. I spray over my fence onto their side a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm killing a bunch of their shit over there. But if I can just get them to die on that side, it's kind of a win-win for me. But yeah, it's not good. Once it gets down and on your trees, that's problematic.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna, I've used the ground kill stuff before, the weed killer that's ground kill. I've used that before, so we'll put that down, and then we're gonna put landscape fabric down. Obviously not. I'm gonna build a landscape rock fire pit, one of the. But so obviously we're not gonna put that down anywhere near the fire pit because I was joking about setting things on fire. So again, if that guy's tree catches fire, I'm just fucked now because I just admitted it on the internet, even though it's not gonna be me. But so I'm just if you happen to be somebody who listens to this and you have some tips on how to deal with that friggin' ivy, you let me know, because it's like I said, my lawn. I spend a considerable amount of time on my lawn for a small lawn, and this ivy just drives me up a fucking wall. So
Can I ask you a question? Like you said, it was a small lawn, so it's just a small. Well, see, the reason I hate cutting my lawn is because I have our house sits on 2 lots, so I have like my front yard, and then my backyard is an entire another house's yard.
Yeah.
So I'm just like this shit sucks. I mean,
so for my neighborhood, I live in the historic neighborhood in the historic district where I live. So we all have pretty small yards to begin with. For my neighborhood, I have a pretty good size yard. But I think my actual like acreage or whatever is like just shy of an acre. So it's not a big lot. Like I use a push mower. No big deal. No big deal there at all. But yeah, it's just this damn ivy, man. I gotta do something with it. But yeah, we're doing a big project back there. We're clearing it all out. Going to try and keep it away for, as much as we can. And then we're going to, like I said, we're going to build that fire pit. Nice. We've got massive trees back there. That's the problem. If they were just like normal sized trees, I would just take them down. But like, these are old trees. They've definitely got environmental benefit too, because they're very clearly, what's that?
They probably have economic benefit too.
I'm sure that I could, being
let's not tree law this.
Yeah, I'm sure that I could find. I'm sure that I could. Pretty soon that'll be Adam's next specialty.
It already is.
Yeah, he's already over there changing
the next stage of my career, man.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm not interested in cutting the trees down because that's the obvious answer is just cut my trees down and I don't have to worry about it. But these trees, for one, are probably they got to be like 100 feet tall. And I don't mean that facetiously. I mean that these trees are very, very old and very, very tall. And I don't, I'm not dropping $20,000 to cut down 2 gigantic trees, even if I wanted to.
Yeah. So I'm gonna come clean for a minute. I do no mow May. So I have not actually mowed my lawn yet this year.
I respect that.
See, that shit's too liberal for me.
Yeah.
You didn't mow in April?
What was I going to mow? I live in Wisconsin.
Okay, I was going to say I know for the first time in March.
He's still snow shoveling, Adam.
So
we're all over here getting ready for the lawn or getting ready to do our first cuts in like the middle of April, and Charles is out there putting salt down on his driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really mow very much for the first few weeks of May. Towards the end of May, I do, but my lawn is a mix of dandelions and violets. So I have.
You put the sign up that says like, "I know what I'm doing. This is like I'm letting my grass grow intentionally," kind of thing.
Right. I'm helping bees. I'm helping everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't put the sign up because I'm not a self-righteous prick. I'm just lazy.
So I have story time. Much like Justin described, my house is also on a double lot. My house is also, because I live in West Virginia, on the side of a damn hill.
Right.
So it is an undertaking to mow. So that's Chris. I do not mow every 3 days because that would be fucking miserable.
Coward.
Yeah. So I'm also mowing every 3 weeks.
Adam, if it's a 50-degree slope, it's not a hill, man. You live on a fucking mountain.
It's an undertaking.
You have to lower your lawnmower down with a rope and then pull it back up.
So the other lot, really, which is on the other side of it's kind of a dry creek bed. It has some running water when it rains, but mostly dry creek bed. But this other lot, I just decided I'm sick of mowing this shit. I'm just going to plant it. I'm just going to spread wildflower seeds. I'm going to let it go to meadow. And when you spread wildflower seeds, you do it in the fall. You let them go down into the soil and germinate and do their thing during the winter. And then they come up in the spring. Well, in the spring, it was looking real good. I had a bunch of different wildflowers coming up. This whole lot was looking great. It was looking very naturey. And then I think my neighbor thought he was doing me a favor.
Oh,
he mowed
no.
it. And he mowed all of my wildflowers.
Oh,
up.
no.
Oh, those fighting words. Oh, that's
that's brutal. My father-in-law did something similar. He had small hills in the front of his grass, and he killed it, planted wildflowers. It looks great now. My wife actually told me, though, that the wildflowers are the exact same ones that they plant on the side of the road on Pennsylvania turnpikes. So it's just entirely possible he just went and fucking transplanted some PA turnpike flowers there. Oh, my wife actually heard me saying that. That's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Pennsylvania Turnpike Authority.
Yeah. I bet you if he would have asked, they'd be like, "Here's the bag of seeds we use. Please spread them fucking everywhere." Because yeah.
Oh God. Anyways, yeah, I agree with Charles, man. If you're at a 50-degree angle, if you're worried about the mower flipping up on top of you, you're cutting a mountain.
Yeah.
Just let it go at that point. Yeah. I would not let my pride get in the way on that one. I worked landscaping for a summer when I was in college. I mean, and I was cutting a yard, and it had a pretty steep hill. And before I knew it, the lawnmower was going like the front was starting to I was like, oh, okay. And now I understand why they cut these on the, cut them long ways instead of up and down. But fortunately around me, I don't really have anything, Ohio is a pretty flat place. But my in-laws in Pittsburgh, they some of the houses I pass on the way there, my first instinct is, how the hell do you cut that grass? How you do that? So
sometimes it's a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, so before we wrap this, because it is Memorial Day weekend, what's everyone grilling?
I always preface this too when I remind everybody about Memorial Day that Memorial Day, a lot of folks forget it's not about the cookouts and opening your pool and stuff. So at the very minimum, take a minute and remember the folks who died, defending our country before you pop your stuff on the grill. In my case, we're not doing anything crazy. We're just doing some hot dogs and some chicken thighs, keeping it nice and simple. See how long my kids last outside. So it's also supposed to be cold in Ohio, from what I remember, or from what I saw, I should say. What about you guys? What are you grilling?
Well, for the occasion, I got about 2 pounds of steelhead trout. That I'm primarily gonna grill some steaks this weekend, but after those are cooked, I'm gonna let the grill cool a little bit. I'm gonna smoke all that trout for basically until the coals go out, and then I'm gonna put that on sandwiches the rest of the week.
That sounds delicious. Have you ever tried to make? This is just me getting, I don't know, maybe I'm hungry. Have you ever tried to use it in like unconventional ways, like on like pizza?
Yeah, actually. Last weekend, so I have a saga going on where I have not had a functional kitchen since March because I had a plumbing leak and was in a dispute with my insurance company for a while. And so the contractor came in, gutted my kitchen, and then the contractor and the insurance company went back and forth forever about what did and didn't need to be replaced. And in the interim, I don't have a damn kitchen. So finally I got sufficiently tired of that shit that I threw a frozen pizza on the grill.
Yeah.
Turns out, you know what? The charcoal flavor on a Red Baron random ass frozen pizza.
Probably not a lot of transfer.
It tastes pretty good, I think.
Okay, I guess there was transfer. Okay. Yeah, I've had grilled pizza. I enjoy it. I think that you can realistically you can grill anything you set your mind to. I've made friggin' sausage and peppers outside from start to finish. Outside of, physically putting sausage in casings, every other thing came from the outdoors. And like,
that's really something that should be said in the Hank Hill voice.
Listen, don't shit talk King of the Hill.
Bobby,
am.
You can grill anything you set your mind to.
Yeah.
King of the Hill comes back on Sunday. All right. The series revival is on.
That comes back this Sunday?
Series revival is on Sunday. And I expect all 7 of you that are going to listen to this to make sure that you also watch that TV show.
Hell yeah.
I'm terrified that it's going to be bad because nothing good comes into the world anymore.
Well,
don't put that out there. Come on.
It's going to have a hard time living up to the original series.
I mean, what President Obama said, the sequel, we've all seen the original, and the sequel's never any better. In this case, we can probably directly translate that to this, but I'm still going to watch it. I love King of the Hill.
Yeah, I too will watch it. I'm worried that in this political climate, it's gonna. Well, I don't know. Do you guys know that Mike Judd is a InfoWars listener and has been on the show?
No.
Yeah.
Nope, didn't know that.
Yeah, Mike Judd. Yeah, Mike Judd recorded him saying, you all need to listen to InfoWars and that Alex Jones in Hank Hill's voice for Alex Jones. And
yeah, I mean, Dale Gribble's character makes a lot more sense now. That's probably what his friends are like.
True, very true. So I'm Chris, like you. I'm 100% for it. Let's fucking I was a fan of the original series, but that's my hang up. I like in this current political environment, like what the fuck does Mike Judd think he can get away with, or where does he take the story? But hey, I'm here for it. I'm here for the ride.
I'm going to be honest. I think it's probably going to be more progressive than the original was because it's centered around Bobby's life, not around Hank's life.
True. Yeah.
And nobody can look at Bobby Hill and say he was going to turn out a Bush conservative like his dad did.
Right. Yeah.
So I will also be grilling on my charcoal grill.
Sorry, Hank.
Yeah,
lots of salmon.
Yeah, my wife has been hankering for salmon too. For some reason, and I don't know how we kind of fell into this pattern, but whenever I make her salmon, I do brats for myself because I'm not a salmon guy, fish guy. So like I make her salmon and I do like brats and risotto for myself. So that's our plan this weekend.
Do you make the risotto outside on like the side burner?
I have. The current grill.
Props on that. I can only imagine how sweaty I would get. The amount of stirring you got with risotto outside over a grill.
It's not too bad. It's not. I mean,
I'm just a sweaty dude in general, though, so I just lean into it. At this
it's going to be about like 65 degrees here in Chicagoland, so it'll be nice and cool and breezy, of course. I do want to tell one story before we wrap this up, Chris, because you mentioned trees. When we were living in Huntington, my wife and I first got married, we had this big tree, maybe 100 foot out front of our yard, but it like died and it was like pieces were just falling off. Right, it was a dead tree. Come home one day and there's this giant log where my car would have been, and so our neighbor behind us that we shared a fence with, like we always talk to, like his dogs like to sniff our dogs, and we'd have little conversations. He said, my nephew works for a tree cutting company and he'll cut your tree down for you. I was like, that's awesome. Give me his number. We'll hook him up. So he and like 3 of his buddies show up. I am almost 100% sure they had a snoot full when they showed up. And this was like 9 a.m. And so these guys have all the equipment. They're bonded and licensed, whatever. So they cut down this entire tree. And the price they quoted for me was $250. And I said, deal. Like, I don't know what shady shit you guys are running, but deal. And then they of course cut it down and hauled it away. I don't know they're going to sell it for firewood. I'm not an idiot.
For sure.
All right, whatever. And
just take it. I don't care. Sell it for firewood.
Right? Yeah. I mean, we didn't have a fireplace in the house we used, or I would have asked for some of it. Like pile some up over here, whatever. So they waited until they were completely done. At the end of the day, this tree is gone. It's a stump. All the wood is gone. I have a check written for them, $250. That's when they decide to renegotiate their price.
That's not acceptable.
And I was like, they're like, we really probably should have charged you $500 for this. I was like, you probably should have had this conversation before you cut the fucking tree down. Took it away.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Put the tree back up?
Yeah.
Right. Here's my last check. You can either take this one or I'm going to write void on it.
Yeah, like either take this one or I'm tearing this one up and I'm going back inside and having a beer. Like, I was never more just like bumfuzzled by like, what the hell? What is your what is your theory here? And they're like, yeah, like I'm looking at the stump, and you want to. Okay, it was amazing.
Yeah, that would have been okay. All right, yeah. How about that game last night?
Yeah.
Because if you think I'm going to renegotiate something after your dumbass already cut the credit down, yeah, like Adam said, put the tree up.
Yeah, that would
put it back up.
Actually, and if you don't put it up, I'm going to sue you, and I'm going to call Adam Strider to sue you.
You know what? Now you owe me $250.
Exactly.
What'd you cut my tree down for?
All right. Well, gentlemen,
and
I know
kids is why you always get everything in writing.
Exactly. But, I know it's later for you guys than it is for me. Any guys have any closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
I mean, I just to encourage everybody, step off the internet for a while. Step out of arguing with everybody. If you spend more than an hour of your day out there arguing with people on the internet, you got to find something else to do, man. And that's coming from a guy who's very actively ingrained in politics, like very, very deeply ingrained. Find something else to do. Spend some time with your loved ones. Pick up a hobby.
Go
tune
for a
into
hike.
Yeah, tune into the King of the Hill revival.
Yeah. Pretend that you like your kids, like whatever you need to do.
All right, everybody.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Good. All right, everybody.
We'll see y'all.
Take care, guys. Good fucking luck, America.
Hey, Woods.